Hey, welcome to another episode of Beyond the Pod. I am Brandon Mileski from KFN. Pat Micheletti, former Golden Gopher great with me. And Pat, Beyond the Pod is brought to you by Culturama and SodaStick.com. We have hockey weather without the hockey right now.
Yeah, we do. Hopefully we're getting to the point where we're going to start, at least seeing some college games anyway. So hopefully heading in the right direction and keeping our fingers crossed that they're able to pull this all off.
Well, and we have some college hockey news to talk about. So let's go to the head coach of the North Dakota Fighting Hawks, Brad Berry, who is live from Ralph Engelstad Arena. If you're watching this on the KFN YouTube channel right now, you can see the best background we've ever had for a guest on the show, Brad.
Yep.
And Brad, I know I want to talk about your program. I want to talk about the bubble situation, but I didn't even put the two and two together until last night that you and Pat played against each other in college. You were at North Dakota. He was at the University of Minnesota. You were a defenseman. He was a forward. So I'm going to ask Pat about you next, but I want to what was it like to play against Pat? He seems, I was too young at the time, but it seems like he was one of those guys that you just hate to play against.
Well, I don't know. Hate's a strong word. Yeah, obviously we had a heated rivalry with North Dakota and Minnesota, and it was pretty special back in the day. It's probably one of the things we miss, about our two different leagues right now is, we don't consistently get to play each other more than twice a year. But I guess just to let you know on Pat, he was a fast, skilled guy that could put the puck away, and I was a slow-moving defense trying to catch him. So I don't know. I think it was an unfair game.
Well,
Pat, what was he like to play against?
Well, look at the size of them. I mean, good luck trying to get around the redwood tree. And Brad knows this. The old Ralph Engelstad Arena, which I called the miniature Met Stadium, right? And it was like playing in a closet. There was no room at all, and so you better have kept your head up, or else you would have been in the fifth row.
Hey, you know what, Pat? I love that comment. Obviously the old Ralph with the low ceiling, and it was really loud in there. But I also Williams Arena, where you used to have to walk down the stairs to get to the locker room, and you have the fans hanging on you. I thought that was an awesome setting too.
Well, yeah. I mean, we and the thing, Brandon. I don't know if you know the old Mariucci.
I was there, yeah.
Yeah, we had to walk. Our locker room was past the visitors.
Yeah.
So we literally had to walk right past the visitors' locker room, and we'd look in, and I mean, it was a lot of fun. We had the rivalry was really true. Not that it's not now, but it was just there was something about those games that were really, really special.
Yeah, they were fun.
Do you have like one specific story, Brad, about him like slashing you on the back of the leg or something like that?
I'm not that dumb, Brandon.
It was, I don't know. We had a fair share of characters on our team and on their team too. There's Corey Miller. I remember the big guy you had, Dave Pruce.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, there was, and then Archie was on our team. And
Archie, oh gosh,
it got heated there a little bit. But at the end of the day, that was college hockey, and it was pretty special.
Well, the thing is, Brandon, and I think I've told this story before. Archie and I, were just, there was venom out of both of us when we played together. And you take Archie off the ice, and by far, and Brad, you know this, one of the most genuine, nicest people in the world. And it was like we all thought they were just, horrible people when you're playing against them, right? And them thinking the same about us. They wanted to kill us. We wanted to kill them. And then you talk to you become friends off the ice. And that's what's so great about our game, the competitiveness that you just want to beat the other opponent was what we all play for.
Yeah, for sure. The mutual respect at the end of the day.
No doubt.
All right, Brad, before we move on to this year, because we have a lot to talk about regarding this year's team, I do want to just go back to last year briefly, because how tough and disappointing was it for you to have a team to have that great of a season? You're number 2 in the nation, I believe. You would have been a number 1 seed in the NCAA tournament, 26-5 4 overall record. You probably had to have liked everything about that team and to not be able to see that thing go all the way through.
Yeah, for sure. It was one of those years where you put, your blood, sweat, and tears into it. Our guys, I can't say enough about our senior group that, had to live through a couple of years making the national tournament and now finally getting a chance to get into the postseason. That was really tough. But it was one of those things where everybody had to deal with it around the country in college athletics. And I'm just grateful that we have an opportunity this year. We had a lot of guys that made the commitment to come back this year that would have had an opportunity to sign pro contracts to come back. So we're excited about it. And, I know there's an initial plan in place to get into a pod or bubble here at the end of November. And we're really looking forward to that.
Well, you're talking about some of the guys who decide to come back, and Jordan Kawaguchi, for him to come back, and I read some stuff where he got some advice from Kajula, who had been there and made the return for his senior year to win a national championship, and listen, I think it's wonderful. I wish all kids would stay as long as they could, but for him to come back, I think is it's going to be catamount for your team.
Yeah, you know what, it is, and it's tough because I think you lived it, I lived it, Pat. Here we were part of special programs. We went off and played, and now we're back kind of with our respective programs again here. But I think it's one of those things that you can tell somebody until they kind of continually hear it from other people that are currently at the next level in the NHL. They go, hey, wait a minute, what this guy's playing, like Drake Kajula, he's playing in Chicago with the Blackhawks in the best league in the world, and he's telling me that, hey, NHL will be there. Take your time. You'll never get those years back in college. That resonates. And again, we're very grateful that these guys have made that commitment, and they're digging in. They're just not buying time here. They want to make the most of this last year they have of eligibility.
All right, let's talk about the bubble situation, because it took me. I had to read this thing a couple times to kind of figure out what was going on. It was a little complicated, but you guys are going to start in Omaha as of right now on December 1st in a bubble. You guys have split into two divisions, the West and the East. You guys will be in the West with Colorado College, Denver, and Omaha. And it sounds like you're going to play all your cross division games against UMD, St. Cloud State, Western Michigan, and Miami of Ohio in that bubble, and then kind of just be more a West geographic thing after that. We're going to be going home and home. Yeah. How do you go about preparing for putting your team in a bubble for 3 weeks and not being anywhere near home?
Oh, Brandon, that's a great question. We're going on charter waters right now. Normally in a college season, you play Friday, Saturday, and then you have the week to build and grow to get to that week and prepare, right? Now it's going to be like going from a dead stop to going 100 miles an hour and playing 10 games in 20 days. I think obviously conditioning is going to have to be a big deal as far as making sure that we have energy in the tank and we're excited to play, but also knowing that we can have the endurance to go get through that gauntlet of games in a short amount of time. So, like I said, it's going to be new to everybody. And our message to our players is we have 26 players. Everybody's going to play. It's going to be a situation where fresh bodies are going to be the key to try to have success. And we're going to go from there. And then after that, we'll take a break at Christmas, come back on Jan 1, 2, and have the remaining 16 games within, like you talked about, Brandon, that Western Division where we're going to, hammer away on 16 games to try to complete a 26-game schedule. And, hopefully we can prevent any virus from, knocking down any of the teams. But there are weekends built in the second half to make up games if 1 or 2 weekends get shut down.
Hey, Brad, how have the guys handled, the first month and a half since you guys have been back, not knowing, trying to practice, trying to stay focused, trying to get ready, everything that's been involved?
Yeah, great question, Pat. I think the biggest thing, there's frustration and there's a little anxiety, wondering if there will be a season. And now there's some clarity and certainty to having a plan in place to get going. But I think the one thing is everybody's facing this. You're looking at junior teams, you're looking at the NHL that had to wait for a while and get the playoffs completed, and now they're going to start hopefully on Jan 1 somewhere in there. But everybody's kind of facing the same thing right now, and for us, we're just taking that day by day approach. We want to try to stay fresh here too, instead of trying to grind it out every single day. For the next 40 some days till we start. We're shaking it up on how we do things on the ice in the weight room, and community service is the big thing. Trying to give back to the community on some days when we're not going to get to the rink here.
How do you go about keeping your players from not getting COVID and putting themselves in a situation where you're missing games? Because, let's face it, that demographic out of all of them in the United States right now, and maybe because they're the least likely to get affected by it. And between boredom and being on campus and wanting to hang out with friends at a time in their life when it's a time to socially have some fun and also advance obviously educationally. But how do you go about convincing college kids, hey, you guys got to be safe so that we can have our best possible season here?
Well, that is going to be the battle right now. You know what I mean? And I think it's one of those things where communication is going to have to be the biggest thing on a daily basis. Belief and trust that we will get going, and we will. But also too, you're dealing with young athletes, young student athletes here that, what we firmly believe is, the ultra focus that you can have to do things well, elite or excellent on a daily basis, is make sure you concentrate on hockey and then school. Those are the two main things right now. And for us to keep our season alive and going, not only us but other programs in the nation, is making sure that you have a discipline and a focus each and every day, whether it's in the rink or whether you leave the rink, that, hey, I got to do the right things to give myself and my teammates a chance to keep going. Because guess what? At the end of the day, these young men did make a sacrifice to come back. Instead of making money at the NHL level, they did make a sacrifice to come back. So I think that's in the back of their mind too, that, hey, I made that commitment. I'm going to.
Hey, yeah, Brad. Yeah, just looking at your roster, looking at the number of guys you have coming back. I mean, it's obviously very, very impressive. What do you like most about your team heading into this season?
Everybody, and I think the cliche for coaches when they're excited about their team is they bring up the word depth. I think,
Yep.
If somebody leaves your lineup for one way, shape, or form, that you're not really worried about, replacing them with somebody that can't play at that level. So I think, depth is a big key for us. I think the other thing is the culture, the team first mentality. Like, we've got some high end guys that are first round draft
Yeah.
guys that have been kind of touted as the next best player going to the NHL. I think, those guys have ultra great attitudes coming in here, that, they check their door when they come here at the Ralph, and they're really team first. So I really like the culture that we've had with kind of some high end players in our group here.
Yeah, you talked a lot about the players coming back, and as you just mentioned, you had some some draft picks, some freshman defensemen coming in, including the number 5 overall pick, Jake Sanderson. You also had Tyler Clevin, who was drafted 44th overall. Both of those guys going to the Senators. You had a 4th round pick in Mitchell Miller. So you're adding some freshman defense. And why don't you specifically talk about Jake Sanderson? Because for those of us that were following along with the NHL draft, we knew that he was kind of a riser as it kept approaching the draft.
Yeah, you know what? He's a guy in this day and age, when we just talked about can't move very well like myself a long time ago. This guy's the ultra polar opposite. He's the guy that has unbelievable great feet. His dad played in the NHL, I believe, 17 years as a forward, was known for his skating ability. Well, this guy is pretty much similar as far as skating ability, only he's a defenseman. And he's one of those guys that does everything very well. Like, he's an unbelievable defender, as far as his gap control and taking time and space away, really good stick. But I think one thing that he doesn't get as much, I guess, accolades for would be his offensive play of jumping up in the rush, or ozone play or power play time, where he knows the next play, and he gets pucks to the net, and he's really quick and efficient at doing that. So I think he brings an overall game, a good two-way game, but high level in every category.
Can you tell with a guy like him, or even any of your other young guys, like right now in practice before they've ever played in a college hockey game, do you have a good feeling of how they're going to be once they actually play in game situations, or is that always just kind of you never know what they're going to be like until you see them in a game?
100%. You hit it right on the head. I think you never know really until you get them out on the ice in a real game situation, when the cards are on the table, and you need to get the 2 or 3 points in the game. The one thing this year that's going to be a little bit different, I think, the start of the season, there's not going to be any fans. I don't believe in the pod or the bubble. So
Right.
When you go into Minnesota, you go into North Dakota, and you got 10 to 15,000 fans in the stands yelling and screaming. How is a kid going to react? Well, it's going to be a little bit different now, but I just think that each player comes from a really good background, whether it's junior or the national development program, that they've been coached very well, and it's not it seems like it's relatively a seamless transition compared to years past.
How difficult is it? I mean, obviously, if you're going to North Dakota, if you're going to any of the, well, anywhere really in Division 1, um, you know, Brad, how difficult every level is. There's a next step, and you just there's some that are going to be good, but it's going to take some time to get there. I mean, can you tell that a certain player is really ready to jump into the fray, and where others might need a little bit more time, but they're going to be good?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not definitive. It's not a perfect
Yeah,
science, but the beauty in college hockey, Pat, and you know more than anybody that, you have on a normal season, you have Monday through Thursday to get a body of work on players to see their
yeah,
habits, their detail, their execution. And that's what we're seeing right now. Like, I got to be honest, there's some freshmen that are way ahead of some other freshmen that you go, if we get in a game, that translates to, him probably maybe having a little bit more success, or the guys that need to catch up, probably it's going to take a little bit more time. So I would say practice is probably the body of work where that happens.
You mentioned no fans in the bubble. How about fans when you get back to playing your home and home and you're playing in the West Division? Because it appears as if North Dakota has a little bit looser restrictions than Minnesota. What's kind of your thoughts on, or what's going to be your protocol in terms of whether you can have fans and how many fans you're going to have at North Dakota games this year?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it all depends on the comfortability of each state, each individual state at that point in time. Right now, it spiked a little bit in North Dakota here, and we're hoping by December or January, once we get out of the bubble and get back home, that it loosens up and it kind of retracts a little bit where we can have. I can't put a number on it, but I would hope it would be a good majority of our fans in the stands, and that'll only remain to be seen. What it looks like in January.
North Dakota was one of the places being mentioned to hold the bubble, and I know your fans are really, really disappointed that it didn't end up in North Dakota. What's been the feedback that you've been hearing from your fans?
Well, you know what? I really haven't been, other than I don't go on the message boards at all or different things like that. But
You're a smart man.
Smart man.
Yeah, but hearing around the community, they're just saying, I can't believe we didn't get it. After having the World Juniors and U18s, I get that. At the end of the day, we did put a bid in. I thought it was a really excellent bid as far as checking all the boxes. But at the end of the day, Omaha's a great option too. It's a great building, it's a great city, and I think one of the things we have to do now is look forward, don't look back. And our message to our players is, hey, we have a job to do. Now we, instead of just hosting and worrying about ice conditions and different things like that within our group, we can just go play. We can just go down there and concentrate on our small group that's going to go down there and concentrate on trying to do the best that we can to win games to start the season. So I think it kind of refines our focus, going on the road.
Back to the bubble here, for a quick second. Are you guys are you attempting to put a plan in place as to what the daily protocol is going to be for you guys? Hotels, meals, practice, all everything involved in terms of what you guys are going to be doing once you are in the bubble.
Yeah, that's still to be determined as far as what the exact protocol is and where you can go and the timings of different things. That's still being determined right now. But for us, I think it's going to be controlling what we can control. We're going to try to emulate or try to replicate what we're going to be doing. Like, we're going to be playing a game, and then we're going to have relatively a day off with maybe a skate pass shoot day, and then we're playing again every other day. So what we're trying to do maybe in the last couple of days is try to replicate kind of the conditioning side of it going into that bubble, and then from there it's everybody's kind of the same. It's uncharted waters, and we'll deal with it. But you got to be open-minded, and I think having a really good group that's experienced and having some great characters on our captaincy group, that helps send the coach's message of what we want to do.
Brad, we'll let you go. I don't want to get hit by a puck while you're at the Ralph Engelstad Arena right now. So thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it. And we'll talk to you down the line. Good luck in the bubble.
Hey, thanks a lot, fellas. It's great to be on with you today.
Yeah, take care, Brad.
All
Good luck.
All right, thanks to Brad Berry, the head coach at North Dakota. If you're watching this on the KFAN YouTube channel, they are practicing. Yeah, he's got practice. He was doing the podcast live from basically right on the ice sheet. It looked like he was maybe on the bench, and he had to get off so they could. Kids got to get some work in. But Pat, Before we move on and talk about other stuff, why don't you tell us about one of our fine sponsors here on Beyond the Pod? That would be Culturama.
Yes, Culturama. Having trouble getting brand recognition, media exposure, or promotion? Looking to find specialized tournament or event management services? At Culturama, they cultivate, collaborate, and connect you to new business strategies to maximize your organization's publicity through strategic brand development, multimedia creation, social media design, sponsorship promotion, targeted marketing plans, or event management services. With over 20 years of experience, Culturama teams will guide you through a comprehensive plan to reach your brand goals. Follow, like, and subscribe to Culturama today to learn how to obtain a PR plan.
All right, Pat, we were talking about the NCHC bubble, and I want to know what your thoughts are on what's going to happen in the NHL this season, because they had a successful bubble, but the amount of COVID cases have been on the rise recently. The NHL is a league that needs to have fans in attendance for it to succeed and to flourish. They don't have the television money that other major sports have. So I don't really see a situation where we're going to have an 82-game season this year. I don't know if it's going to be a shortened season. Maybe they have to cancel the season altogether. I don't know. What's kind of your outlook for what the season's going to be?
Well, I had a conversation with my brother Joe, who will probably be joining us here in the next couple of weeks on our show. And he seems to think that there is going to be a season. I think December was the initial goal. I think that fell to January, and quite frankly, depending upon what happens, I think sometime in the middle of January they'll get something going. Now maybe I'm wrong. Hopefully it'll be January 1st, but he definitely thinks there will be a season. Doesn't know what it's going to look like, but it's certainly not going to be a full season.
Here's an idea I have. Now, I would like as many games as possible.
Yep.
Let's say the NHL just says financial, we can't survive by having too many games because we're not going to have fans in the seats, or we're going to have a limited amount of fans in the seats because it's indoors. So here was my out of the box idea I was thinking about, and you might just completely laugh at this, Pat, and that's okay.
Okay.
It's completely out of the box. But because the bubble works so well, why don't we go back to doing a bubble? Obviously, you can't do an 82-game season in a bubble. That's just, players aren't going to agree to being away from their families for that long. Why not just have a sprint of a season? I'm thinking of maybe doing a 14-game season in which you play everyone in your division twice. Now, for the Wilds division, because they only have 7 teams, they'd have to add another 2 games. But every other division, you have 8 teams, so you'd be playing 7 teams twice. You almost it's almost like an NFL season where every game is of extreme importance. Every point is going to be, obviously extremely important. So you play a 14-game sprint season. You do it over a month, and then you just go right into the playoffs. So now it's a combined 3-month total, and it's all in a bubble in Edmonton and Toronto, or maybe you have to add another location or somewhere in Canada. I'm not sure. I know it seems weird because we're used to 82-game seasons, but to me, you'd be able to bubble everyone up. It's a short amount of season where maybe players would buy into it, and you'd still get all the television money from doing the playoffs.
Not the worst idea I've heard. However, here's what I'll say to that. I will say, I don't know if 14 games is enough.
Oh, it's not.
To allow for, some teams it takes 4 or 5 games to get in, and all of a sudden, are we already out of the playoffs? Or are you saying everyone makes the playoffs?
No, okay. You got to make the playoffs.
You got to make the playoffs. See, that I think you got to go a minimum of at least a minimum at best for me 25 games, because because like I said, you could be out of it right away, or
sure,
or in it right away, and I guess
but that makes those first 5 games unbelievable games to watch.
Unbelievable, yeah, because every game is like a playoff game, right? And so, but I think if there were a way to get you to at least 25, I think you could probably get something like that done.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I don't think 14 games is enough to
Right.
to grant a legit playoff field and a legit Stanley. This is my compromise. If in any way, shape, or form they're thinking about canceling the season because we can't do it without doing a bubble situation. This is kind of my compromise. If here's a way to do a bubble in which it'd be 3 months total, and not all the teams are going to be playing all 3 months, obviously. And like I said, it would create an NFL type feel in that regular season in which every game means something, which they've never really had.
Right, and talk about the coaching that would have to be involved and the discipline and everything is so at its highest level because of that. But again, get me to 2025 and I'd be on board with you.
Well, if the players are willing to be in a bubble longer than that, then sure, it's all gonna be what the players would agree to.
Yeah, and from what I hear from the players that were there, the younger players adapted very, very well to the bubble. The players, the ones with families, young kids, really had a tough time.
Yeah.
So there's so many moving parts, Brandon. That let's just hope we get some in.
All right, let's talk about Matt Dumba. I know you had thought that the Wild were going to kind of go crazy this offseason, that they weren't done making moves, and I feel like it's quieted off a little bit here. But I did see the note from Russo in his piece on theathletic.com that the Wild shopped Dumba heavily at the draft. May have been close to a deal that would have included Florida's first-round pick, which was 12 overall. They drafted center Anton Lundell with that pick, which many people are kind of saying is like another Mikko Koivu. He plays that kind of a game.
Right.
I know center Seth Jarvis went next, so if the Wild would have made that trade, maybe those would have been the two guys they would have been in on trying to get another center because Cole Perfetti had gone 2 picks before, the Russian goalie had gone the pick before. But it almost seems like from Russo's standpoint, all the other teams have kind of dropped off, other than Florida may still have some interest, but that just Guerin's not getting the price he wants. There was kind of the theory, Pat, that once Pietrangelo signed eventually, that domino would fall and that other teams would jump in on Dumba. Well, Pietrangelo has signed with Vegas, and it doesn't really appear as if the Dumba market has heated up, unless it's just being quiet right now.
Might be a little quiet right now, and maybe Bill Guerin's just, maybe he's getting offers that we don't know about. That, he doesn't like any of them, and I know there was talk at one point Winnipeg offered Nikolai Ehlers for Dumba. Well, you know what? If you don't want Ehlers as a guy on your team, even though he can, he's very.
I love Ehlers.
I do too.
But positionally, at this point, the way the roster is constructed, it doesn't make much sense.
I think Dumba can get. I think they can get more for Dumba. And that's why, I've read recently, and I'll keep on bringing up Winnipeg. Patrick Laine is going to get dealt. Now, I tell you, I love Patrick Laine. You just don't find guys who can shoot the puck, big, strong skate. May have, a little laziness to his game at times, but you can't find anybody like him who can snap it and score like he can. And I don't know if his name's been brought up here or not, but Winnipeg certainly needs help on the back end. I think that would be a great fit for both teams. Now, you may have to add a little bit here or there or whatever, but man, if you can get a guy like Patrick Laine and you add them to the forwards that they have, that's a pretty good group.
Well, and if you do lose Dumba by a trade, your biggest concern is that right shot on the power playing. That's what Patrick Laine would fill that void quite perfectly.
Yeah, he would. And they make roughly about the same, although Laine's up for a new deal.
Yeah.
You know what? You can be creative in terms of signing a guy if you really want it, or that's for the GMs to figure out, right? And their cap people and all of that. But I would be all over that if they could swing a deal like that.
Well, all of a sudden you'd have a lot of money kind of tied up at the wing positions. You already have Parise, assuming you can't unload him. You'd have Laine. Fiala is due to get a raise at some point here. You're going to have Kirill Kaprizov. coming in, who after a year is probably going to get paid. So you would be, once again, we're looking at the center position, and you're at this point pretty dependent on Marco Rossi turning out, which, you know me, I love him, and I think it might take a year or two here. He's going to be a young kid. To expect him to just jump in right away and become a legit first line center for you is asking a lot. But once again, we'll be back to how can we make the center position work? But that being said, Pat, our wing position would be as good as we've had in a long time.
Right. And if you have great players like that on your wings, it's going to make Rossi's job a lot more, the transition won't be as difficult. And so, I hope they do something. We're just going to have to wait and see.
All right. Once again, your screen has gone black on me. I will turn you off for a second while I let our listeners and viewers know about another sponsor on Beyond the Pod. That would be sodastick.com. Go to sodastick.com to get your original Minnesota sports inspired goods. They just launched their partnership with Michelob Golden Light for the Mick Golden Light Hunting Club merch line. The logo features a bottle of Michelob Golden Light with deer antlers. They've got it on blaze orange shirts, hoodies, hats, and more. Get geared up for the hunting opener. If you haven't seen it yet, you got to check it out. And we're going to hook you up with free shipping on your order. Just use the code KFAN for free shipping. That is sodastick.com. Original Minnesota sports inspired goods. Use the code KFAN for free shipping. Let's get Pat back in the mix, who second week in a row, you've turned into a black screen, but that's all right.
Well, you know what happens here. I get calls coming in and I use my phone for this. And so, yeah, it's maybe time for Pat to upgrade a little bit and, buy a new computer.
Let's get to one topic before we move on to Pry Pat. Doc Emmerich retired from broadcasting. Yep. I know if we do end up getting your brother on at some point, we'd love to talk to him about his relationship with Doc, having both been around the game for quite some time from a television standpoint. But, usually I don't talk about broadcasters retiring in any way, shape, or form, Pat. But to me, he's, you've been around a lot longer than I have. But from my generation and from what I've watched on television, he's the best broadcaster I've seen, at least from a hockey standpoint. And you could argue from a sports standpoint.
Yeah, I mean, there have been a lot of good ones in hockey over the years, but Doc is, certainly right up there with the all-time greats. And I know Joe will talk about it when we have him on, but he and Doc were partners and for a couple Olympics and doing 2 games a day and his preparation was unbelievable, and his delivery and he's just a kind gentleman, and doesn't he for being the superstar that he is, probably the most humble guy you'll ever want to meet. And so hockey is going to miss him. There's no doubt, because you look at the game and how we market our players, and I think we could do a better job. But you talk NHL hockey, the first name that comes up is Doc Emmerich, and for the way he calls games. So he's certainly going to be missed.
All right, let's move on to hashtag PryPat. If you ever have a question you'd like Pat to answer, just go on Twitter and use the hashtag PryPat in your post. John Williams asked Pat, Rossi at center, Kaprizov at wing. Who is the other wing? Hashtag PryPat.
Well, you got to find the right fit there.
Yeah.
I've even floated something, even though he is not a what you would call a top 6 guy, but a guy like Marcus Foligno. Okay. And the reason I say that is, I always look at lines, at least I do, Brandon, that it's kind of a 2/3, 2 guys that really, really play well together, and then a third guy that complements. I think Marcus is a guy who, he's not an unintelligent player. So you tell him what to do, you give him a role, and maybe he fits in a line like that. At least, when you're talking for a season that is 82 games long, even though this year it won't be, you need some balance throughout your lines. And, maybe a guy like Marcus fits that role.
I always find it funny because we obsess about line combinations leading up to the season. And then, 3 games in, they've been completely jumbled because,
right.
right. So, but that being said, from a fan standpoint, it's still kind of fun to talk about
Yep.
The interesting thing is they have a lot of left-handed wingers here with Kaprizov, Fiala, and Parise. I know Kaprizov was able to play the right wing though in Russia a little bit, but then you got Greenway. You mentioned Foligno, Johansson. If he ends up playing wing, is left-handed. But my thought is Johansson is kind of more of a playmaking center. If he's going to play center, he's more of a playmaker. So to me, it makes sense to put him with Fiala, because Fiala is a guy who's going to be dominating the puck and wants to shoot the puck.
Yeah, and here's the thing. At least and my thought on this is, I look back at my career, and I always had a great center, always had a great centerman, and then on the left side or the right side, depending upon what side I was playing, we always had that banger, that mucker, that guy who was going to do a lot more of the dirty work than two skilled line mates. Okay. And so I guess it all depends on the makeup of the line and what a certain player likes to do and doesn't like to do. You could throw Parise on that line, because you know where Zach lives, right? He lives in the corners and he lives in front of the net. And maybe that's a guy that you throw at those two. But everything has a way of working out, and guys have a different feel of who they're playing with, who they like to play with, that style of play, and so a lot of factors go in.
Well, then kind of the wild card in this lineup, Pat, to me is Nick Bjugstad, a right-handed shot, a big guy who's versatile, can play center or wing. To me, you can kind of insert him. I could see him being a fourth-line guy who's struggling just to keep himself out of the press box. Maybe he comes back healthy and he's built up the strength, and he's shown potential to be kind of a second-line guy in the past. I mean, because he's a center and a wing, and because you could see him in your top six or in your bottom six, he's a guy who could be anywhere in the lineup.
It really could. And we know, Brandon, throughout the length of a season, guys are getting dinged up and and hurt out a few games. And so, you're going to need that flexibility. And I think, when you add a guy like a Bukestead, he really fits that role, just, exactly how you explained it.
We were just talking about Dumba. David Carrier says, #PryPat, do you see the Wild trading Dumba before the season starts or waiting?
I think they're going to move him. I really do. They've got some time. But I think Bill Guerin's doing the right thing, just being patient and waiting for, it's not necessarily waiting for the best player. It's waiting for that player who is really good, who he thinks can fit into this group of guys that he has currently on the team. So I think they're going to move him. I think, I think it's only fair to Matt, and it's really, what's best for this team. And, they need help up front, and I think the deal will get done.
By the way, I just realized I didn't even mention Zuccarello as another left-handed wing who could potentially be in your top six. For Dumba, to me, it makes sense to move him now. I know there have been people that said, well, you don't have to move him. You've got you can be patient. You can wait. But technically, before the expansion draft next year, who knows if, let's say, a Jordan Greenway all of a sudden takes the next step up and you're like, we got to protect this guy, or a Johansson in a new system playing with, some skilled guys all of a sudden has a great year, and you think, there are guys that right now on the roster, you're not like, we have to keep them, but they might emerge, and you put yourself in a situation where all of a sudden you have to move Dumba before the expansion draft. Well, I think you lose a lot of your leverage by waiting until next summer to do it. So I don't know. To me, I would think, unless you're banking on him, having a great half season where you can trade him for the deadline, where all of a sudden he raises his stock because he's playing so well. I don't know. But at that point, it's also hard to trade him too. So I almost think like right now is kind of the best time to trade him before the season even starts. Well, before teams get too locked up on salaries too.
Right. And here's the deal. Bill Guerin, Bill Guerin is thinking, at least I'm thinking that he's thinking this way, is what is going to be best for the Minnesota Wild? How are we going to be a better team? Are we going to be better holding on to Matt Dumba? Are we going to get more wins by keeping Matt Dumba? Or are we going to get more wins by acquiring another forward who's going to help us offensively? And do we have enough defensively that we can survive without a Matt Dumba back on the blue line? And so I just think he's going to do what he feels is best for the organization.
Charlie Sherman says, hashtag Pride Pat, give me three reasons why I should care about the upcoming season, given the fact that we are clearly rebuilding and most of the forwards won't even be here in 2 years.
Well, I take I'll push back on the rebuild. Okay. To me, when you talk about a rebuild, that means you were really, really, really good. And then you lost guys, and now you have to bring in younger guys. This team is
like what Chicago's trying to do right now.
Yeah, exactly. This team is not at a upper echelon, or we're at an upper echelon where you could call them what they're doing a complete rebuild. I think what they're doing is trying to get better and get better players in here than what was there before. So I do not call that a rebuild. That's number one. Number two, when you have a potential superstar coming over here in Kirill Kaprizov and the emergence of a Kevin Fiala, that's reason number two. And then, I guess those are the two things. There's not really a third.
Oh, Marco Rossi is the third thing.
Yeah,
if he makes the team,
I
Pat.
guess so. Yeah.
Well,
to the mix.
I'm not going to act like I think, hey, this team's going to be a Stanley Cup contender this year.
Right.
But in terms of why should I be excited about a rebuild? Are they getting younger and getting faster? Are they changing the direction of the team? Yes. Has the last two seasons would you have been more encouraged if Eric Stahl was still here and Mikko? Like, would that get you excited? That wouldn't get me excited to go through the same thing they went. I know people get a little concerned about, hey, the younger thing, because we went through that before with Zucker and Coyle and Nino and kind of that group and Granlund and that group, and it never really panned out to the level we wanted to pan out. But to me, you have to be excited. We finally have superstar potential here, Pat. We have, right. I think we have an emerging superstar in Kevin Fiala. Kaprizov, this isn't a 19-year-old kid who needs a couple years of development. He was the best player in the second best league in the world and is 25 years old and should be ready to play big boy hockey and contribute for you right away. And yeah, I don't expect Marco Rossi to be a legit number one center in year one, but I do think the Wild got one of their best draft picks they've had in a long time in him at a position that is desperately needed. So I think the direction, it might not all come to fruition this year, but I think you're seeing the building blocks of what's going to happen 2, 3, 4 years from now.
Well, yeah. And another difference, Brandon, is, you talked about, well, we were younger once, but all those guys had no experience, none. I mean, when Granlund came in, when Zucker, Niederreiter, Coyle, that group, if that's the group we're talking about, they weren't with other teams. They hadn't had experience in the league. Now you've got a guy like Fiala who came over, experience in the league. Johansson, right? Guys like that. Talbot in net.
Yep.
You're not necessarily getting rookies. You're getting guys that have played in the league, who've been around, who know how to be a pro. And, I think that's a big difference.
I'm excited to see a team that plays faster and plays with pace.
Oh, without a doubt.
It's been hard to watch the slower team the last 2 years.
Correct.
Pat, great stuff as always. Appreciate your time. We'll talk to you next week right here on Beyond the Pod.
Have a great week, Brandon. Thank you.
All right. Yep. Thanks to Pat. Thanks to Brad Berry, head coach at North Dakota, for joining us as well. This has been yet another edition of Beyond the Pod. It's been brought to you by SodaStick.com and Culturama. We'll talk to you next week right here on Beyond the Pod. Bye.